Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 49 of the Nurtured by Nature podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined in conversation by the beautiful Donna from Australia. In this fascinating, heartfelt conversation, Donna invites us to consider the incredible power of reconnecting with our intuition, explaining how this transformed her own life, and discussing the different ways we might experience our own intuition or gut feelings, and how we can embrace this instinctual knowing to guide us in life. If you've ever felt like a black sheep in life, then you'll be comforted to know you are not alone. And Donna shares her love for the powerful healing potential of family constellation therapy, and how by recognizing and healing the patterns and experiences within our own family systems, we can find renewed freedom and open up to a deeper sense of belonging in the world. Donna is extremely passionate about encouraging and empowering people, especially women, to fully embody their soul's expression, particularly at this time when we need heart-centered, courageous people balanced in their masculine and feminine to step forward to help vision a better path for humanity. Alongside her coaching and healing work, she has a second business, creating the most amazing jewellery that not only looks incredible, but is designed to energetically support you to fully live your soul's highest expression, whilst also creating a unique crystalline grid where the community come together regularly to offer healing and support to the world. Welcome, Donna, and thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Nurtured by Nature podcast. I'm really looking forward to talking to you. I think you've got a fascinating history, and we're going to have a really interesting conversation. But to get us started, I always just like to ask my guests to share a little bit about their nature story and just be really how you've related to nature through your life, if there's any fond memories or any way that's evolved or anything you'd like to share just to get us started would be lovely.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me here, Fiona. I'm really excited for our conversation. I grew up in a place called the Dandenong Ranges, and that's about an hour or so outside, east or southeast of Melbourne. And I grew up in the foothills of the ranges, and so think mountains, think giant eucalyptus gum trees, and my bedroom window looked out to the gum trees, and we had this big skylight in our house, which meant that I could see the trees towering over the house as well. And honestly, in my, if I was ever upset or I felt really emotional, I would often just look out the window and connect with the trees. And later I realized how much of a comfort and solace they were to me. I grew up there and moved from our family home when I was 20, and I did a couple of different things, traveled a little bit, and then I moved to the western suburbs of Melbourne with my now husband. The things you do for love, Fiona. And in the western suburbs of Melbourne, not so many trees, not
No.
like quite a bit more like brown and like a drier area.
Yeah.
And there are parts where there are trees, but not like living in the trees like where I grew up.
Yeah.
And I really always missed it. I missed it so much. And we spent probably over 10 years, more than 10 years living out that way. And I just had this feeling like I'm meant to be living somewhere else. This is not where I'm meant to be. And my intuition guided me and my family down to the Mornington Peninsula, which is again outside of Melbourne, but it has the blend of the beach and the gum trees.
Oh,
and
wow. Beautiful.
I feel like I've arrived home. Like this feels like my soul home, and I'm just so happy here. I mean, it's actually really cold in Melbourne at the moment. So I'm like, oh, bro, why are we living by the beach? It's freezing. But I just love it so much. We have like kookaburras here and beautiful birds and wildlife, and koalas live where I live too, and kangaroos and things. But it's a really special place, and I have that I've rekindled that absolute love and adoration of the eucalyptus trees, the gum trees here. And I don't know, there's something about being in the right place or living in the right place. It makes you really feel like you're at home. Well, it does for
Yeah.
me
Yeah,
anyway.
it's sort of it's the energy, isn't it? I think of the land, and I actually loved on your website because you have a sort of dedication to the land and the ancestors and the original people of the land that you're on, and I really love that. It's really in tune with a lot of the guests that I've had recently, and it's just a way of honoring like your connection to the land, I suppose, isn't it? And that's what you really
It
feel.
is. And I feel like it's a real blessing and a privilege to be able to live and work and play on this land because it's ultimately Aboriginal land. Our land is Aboriginal land, and there needs to be the honouring of who was here first. And if we weren't to be living on this land, those spirits would make it impossible. Like there would
Yeah.
be some force of nature that come through, I believe, that would mean that we couldn't live here. And so it's only with their blessing that we get to be here.
Yeah.
And every place that I've lived in, I've connected with energetically like that. And I've asked for the blessings of the spirit of the land to have their permission to be here, to build a house, to do an extension, or even to simply live in that place. And it's through that deeper connection that I feel like we can live in harmony in that way.
Oh, I love that. I just got goosebumps listening to that. I love that idea
Yeah.
of asking where you are to sort of enter into a mutual relationship, really, isn't it? Of, of honoring each other and what you can do to help it and equally what it can do to help you, and that beautiful idea of reciprocity. And yeah, it's just lovely. It's so lovely to speak to you and to hear about the beautiful trees. I'm a real big lover of trees, so
Are you?
that's always a
I,
soft spot straight to my heart. It's another
well,
yeah.
another point of connection. And my favorite thing, Fiona, is looking up at the treetops and the green leaves and seeing a blue sky in the background. There is something about the contrast of those green leaves and the silhouette and sun shining through and blue sky that just does it for me every time. Like, is this heaven on earth? This is heaven on earth,
Yeah,
yes.
no, they're amazing, amazing beings, and it's always really special to have their grounding energy. And I think I always think of them as the real bridge between like heaven and earth as well, because they are so deeply rooted into the ground, but they stretch so close to the sky as well that it's just kind of that beautiful, yeah, bridge between the two worlds, isn't it? That
I love
I
that. Yeah.
enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
they've been here for so long. There is so
right.
much wisdom stored in our trees as well, or in the trees, so
Yeah.
much wisdom stored.
Yeah, I've got, well, one of my trees that I mention quite frequently is a beautiful ancient oak, and he's, hundreds of years old. And I always sit there and I sort of marvel at like what the world, like how the world has changed in his lifetime and compared to like, the small snapshot that we see. And it's always a humbling experience to sort of imagine, that there weren't planes and there weren't motor cars, and he was probably in a forest, and now he's on, the edge of a smaller woodland, and seen just a huge change in our society. I mean, we've seen a big change in our society in the last sort of few decades, but yeah, in a couple of hundred years in tree time, I think, isn't it really?
Every time.
Yeah,
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 I love that. I love
yeah.
that.
But
Oak trees always remind me, like they often make me think that they're hugging trees. A friend of mine has this giant oak tree on her property, and it's the hugging tree, and everyone goes and hugs it. And it's just like the most beautiful, beautiful hugging tree.
Yeah, I think they do enjoy a hug actually. Mine's quite funny. When I say mine, I'm like custodian of it for the time that I'm here. But actually, on the side, he's got a bit of bark that started peeling off, and it's in the perfect shape of a heart, and like
No.
it's completely
Yep.
unmistakable, and it's on the side that you always approach him from, and he's got this huge big heart appeared on his trunk, and if anyone comes into the field and they won't notice it immediately, and then they do a double take and they're like, oh my goodness, it's like your tree's got a heart. And I'm like, yeah, it's just, it's beautiful. But yeah, I think they're amazing beings. But it's
Gorgeous.
you have a fascinating business, and that I think you've just celebrated, what is it, your ninth anniversary actually in the business itself, which is quite an
Yeah.
achievement. So well,
Thank
well done for that.
you. Thank you,
Um,
Fiona.
but do you want to share a little bit more about what you do, and how you help people? Because your passion really is about helping women, which I think is really important, and something particularly at this time where we are at sort of this tipping point in humanity and how we vision a future for ourselves. Giving
Absolutely.
women the sort of support to empower themselves and encourage them is really important in how we're going to move forward from this place that
It
we're in.
absolutely is. It truly is. I believe that I'm here on this planet to help support people switching on their lights. And to me, what does that mean? That means that they can be in harmony with themselves. They can be the fullest version of themselves, the most radiant version of themselves, but also step into that natural born leader that they are too. And I think that there are a huge wave of particularly women. There are also men, but particularly women that are coming forward to create a new version of humanity.
Yeah,
And that is a big mission. And there is so much, like, I want to say, like, almost like weight, not heaviness, but like support behind all the women that are doing that. And I think a lot of those women think that they're kind of individually doing it, but actually there's this collective of women moving and stepping forward and bringing through a new way of being. You know, breaking the patriarchal molds and
yeah,
creating and returning, actually not creating,
yeah,
returning to
returning.
matriarchal society. And I'm really passionate about that. I'm really passionate about women being really empowered and having a voice and being in harmony with themselves, as in very connected with their emotions, sitting in their feminine, yet also embodying their masculine, so we can create and do things and make an important difference and contribution to our communities, and yet be in that intuitive, receptive mode at the same time. Where we can be led by our hearts and led by our intuition. And that is the way forward. And I'm obviously really excited about that, Fiona.
Nice. I no, I do. It's a common thread that a lot of my guests and I have talked about previously, and I think for women, it's like, I mean, you mentioned men and women, but I think, we have a society currently in most Western cultures where men have had more support and been encouraged to be sort of leaders and at the forefront, and that's why we're sort of seeing, I think, a shift away from that, aren't we, to more of a balanced position where women and men can step into those roles and support the feminine aspects, which is what you mentioned. You mentioned intuition, and that's a real key thing for you, which is one of, I guess, women's sort of superpowers, really, isn't it? For want of another word. I know some people might be, I don't know, turned off by the thought of intuition. Sometimes it's seen as a bit sort of woo-woo, isn't it? I mean, I always think of woo-woo is just we haven't got the science to support it yet and understand it. It's not actually that it's, strange and out there. But what does intuition mean to you, Donna? How do you experience your intuition? Because I think sometimes that helps others to understand what we're really talking about.
Yeah. So for me, intuition is really about having a feeling in my body, and when I can listen to those whispers, it changes the course of my direction. Yeah. So a feeling or a sense of knowing or something feeling a little bit off. We could talk about that as a gut feeling. And people have been operating on gut feelings for
Yeah.
eons, actually. And it's been part of our survival mechanism when we were back in the Stone Ages, where we had gut gut feelings and
Yeah.
instinctual feelings, and it's allowing those to come back on board and allowing your intuition to grow in whatever way is best for you too. So, for instance, I always say that we all have like one or two strong suits of intuition, and it's actually really easy to figure out what your strong suit of intuition is. If you are a visual person and you say things like, "Oh, I see what you mean," or
Yeah.
"Let me just see about that," or do you know, if you
Yeah.
are a visual learner as well, then you're probably clairvoyant. You probably have the ability to see things beyond this physical realm. If you say like, "Oh, I know what you mean," or then you're probably in that claircognizance level. You probably get your intuition through here. It sounds like your own voice in your head,
Yeah.
but it's actually your intuitive messages. There are a whole different, lots of different types of intuition, as you know, Fiona, um, but we all have that within us. And I think that, in our culture, it's talked about like intuition is a bit of an anomaly, like it's an out there, it's a
Yeah.
different kind of way of living or something like that. But I don't think that that's true. I think that our natural way of being is to be intuitive, and how we're brought up and what we're exposed to in our culture, in our community, in our families is to prioritize intellect,
Yeah.
education, like
Yeah.
traditional education and intellect
Yeah.
over our feeling state. And so when I do work with people with my emotional and energy healing work, we're actually like helping people reconnect on that emotional level, being able to find that place where emotions are your sweet spot, where they're not overwhelming
Yeah.
anymore, or like, you start crying at the drop of a hat, or the other end of the spectrum where you're really disconnected from emotions. We find that sweet spot of being emotionally connected and allowing emotions to become our best friends, like enhancing the quality of our life. But at the same time, when we do that, because we're talking about feelings, it also switches on our intuition.
Yeah, I think so there's a couple of things I want to point out there is I love the way you describe like the different ways people can experience intuition. Because I think sometimes like when you start dabbling a toe in this kind of field, you sometimes meet someone that says, "Oh, I get, I see things or I hear things in my," and because it's so different for all of us, like sometimes you can feel a bit disheartened if you're like, "Well, I don't get that, that's not how I
Right?
experience intuition." And then you can think, well, I'm not intuitive as is the
I
result of
know.
it. And
It's crazy.
yeah.
It's crazy, right? Because Fiona, like I have so many of my clients say to me, "Oh, Donna, like, can you help me like learn my intuition?" I'm like, "You've just told me that you were seeing purple in that meditation and
Yeah.
this spirit guide came to you and you saw this and that." I was like, "What are you talking about? You're
Yeah.
totally clairvoyant. Like, what do you want?" What people are looking for is what they expect or think
Yeah.
intuition should look like. And actually, we're also individual, aren't we, Fiona? That intuition can look and feel, and you can experience it in very different ways because we're very individual.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't your experience with intuition also be individual?
Yeah, and I think that's really important because it is. I guess I mean, it comes from education. You touched on education, but we are, we are sort of almost shut down by the education system and by our society. As children, we're all very intuitive. We're all very sort of, I guess, open energetically, isn't it? It's like, we aren't limited to these, five senses that we get drilled into us at school. That is like,
No,
unless you
we're
can
at
see it with
least
your
six
eyes or
senses.
yeah.
Yeah, like six senses plus.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Is being aware that you're just tapping into like this other way of experiencing the world, and that's what your intuition is really, is it's responding
Yes.
to these extra stimuli that, for some reason in society we've decided to basically say don't exist. When quite clearly there is actually quite a huge amount of scientific evidence now sort of mounting and building up that clearly shows that there is a huge amount of different ways of sensing into the world beyond what we've
Absolutely.
been led to believe. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it is really important because I know I've had experiences where I felt that sort of I don't know, almost jealousy, I suppose, of like, you've done a group meditation or something, and the person sitting next to you is like, oh my goodness, I saw colors, and I had this like person visit me and speak to me, and I'm like, and that's not how I experience things, and it's like, why don't I have that? And then but you have to just learn what your feeling is and how you feel, and learn to sort of hone that. And it is a skill as well, isn't it? It's a skill that you have to practice and work with.
It is. It is. It's something that we can fine tune and practice over time and also build our trust and confidence in
Mm.
it. And I think that we do that by not just trusting the messages that you get, but actually following that intuition or that guided message or that nudge, whatever you're getting. When you follow it and you see how well things work out for you, it gives you a lot more confidence to continue to trust your intuition and then build that intuitive muscle.
Yeah, and I think I mean something a little bit off tangent, but I find in my experience as well is as you start to work with your intuition, you also develop like these sort of lines of communication with other kin and other beings. So, you feel a deeper connection with the trees and animals. And I did a podcast earlier on with a friend of mine who's an animal communicator, and it's again it's that just a different way of sensing, and part of that comes from intuition and just being more open that actually we live in this like huge, big, vibrant world, and it's not just humans that are out there experiencing
Right.
things. Um, so yeah,
Absolutely. I
there's
often joke with my girlfriends, like some of my girlfriends who are spiritual, like, how do people live not like this? Like, how do you lose a loved one and not be able to connect with them? Like the immense grief that must cause. Like, I know it's not the same. I know that connecting with a loved one in spirit is not the same as having them here in this 3D world and being able to hug them and talk to
yeah,
them. But it's still something. You can still have that connection. And how do people live without that? How do
yeah.
people live like without being guided by their feelings? They must just be stuck in their head all the time. Like, I guess that's what I used to be like. I used to be super emotional and really sensitive and
Yeah.
all caught up in my head and never knew how to resolve anything. And I never knew what the next best step to take was. And now I've got that sense of like, allowing my intuition to guide me to that next step. And it's taken me on the most magical carpet ride of life.
And I think, but that's important, isn't it? And I think that's another thing that you work on quite a lot with people is getting more like well, it's sort of somatic, isn't it? Getting more into your body and reconnecting with your body. Because again, we live in this society, and I think more and more as like the rise of technology, the fast pace of our life as well, like to kind of survive and cope, we kind of have had to just shut ourselves down, haven't we? And just move more and more, like you said, into our heads and out of our emotions, and in terms of like actually allowing our emotions to flow rather than getting stuck. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, I know a lot of people that are sort of connected to the environment are struggling with the current state of the environment. It's, anxiety and overwhelm and trauma as well. There's a lot of trauma in the world. Not just if you care about the environment, but just if you care about humanity and community and anything, there's a huge amount coming at us at the moment. And that's a big thing as well, is finding the support and healing as well, isn't it? To move. I guess just to, well, you talk about encouraging people and empowering them to basically move forward, and it takes courage, doesn't it, to come back
It does.
into your body and start to feel
It
things.
does. It does. It takes courage to do that. And when you say move into your body, like I never knew at the beginning when I was doing my healing work that it was so connected with my body. I just didn't really understand the full, I don't know. I just didn't get it. But what I've come to realize is when people are experiencing difficult things, whether it is what's happening with the environment or the trauma that's happening in the world, or something more personal, if we have difficulty dealing with that, we will just like bounce out of our bodies and straight up into our heads. And that's where we get into those looping thought patterns and trying to figure things out, but yet never kind of being able to get that clarity that we need and just getting really heady. And I think why that happens is because we're experiencing something here in our heart space, and it's really difficult to be with. Like that emotion, that level of emotion is really difficult to be with. And a trauma response is to go up into our heads and to just try to figure things out. And it's not the place that it can't be figured out there. And that's the problem. You're in a never ending kind of
Yeah.
cycle that just you won't get that sort of resolution. The way to get that resolution is to start to process it emotionally and to be dropping back down into your heart space and into your body, connecting in with yourself again and kind of like uncovering what's happening there so you can be like a wholehearted human being again, not just a whole-headed human being again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it does take courage to do that. It does take courage to look at and feel what we're already feeling that we've been disconnecting from. And that's what it takes. It takes courage. It takes going there. It takes, some exploration and an effective way of processing what you're experiencing so you can move through it. So you can take the good things out of so you can experience the silver lining really. Without like spiritually bypassing or trying to ignore or all of that stuff. It's like, no, feel the feels, but then have an effective way of moving through it, of processing so you can keep going in your life, so you can stay on purpose and on your path in terms of what it is that you do want to create.
Yeah, I think I like that. It's because there is this sort of sense of actually just your body's trying to protect yourself. That's why you're going into your head. It's
Yeah.
like, it's too much for you to feel at that stage. So it's, at finding the time when you can begin to sort of gently sort of peel back and be like, can I start to feel this a little bit more, and finding support. And is that part of what you do with your clients? Is you obviously help them to regulate and heal really, I guess.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yeah. To heal very deeply, to heal in a way that things aren't emotionally charged for you anymore. The things that you've experienced, the traumatic things, are no longer charged. Instead, you can take the good things that it's given you, or find what those good things are that it's given you, and just let the rest be integrated as an experience that you've had. But still, you be free to move forward without like the weight or the burden of the past that you've experienced. So
Yeah.
that's one part. And naturally, what happens is we do that inner healing work. Your intuition naturally switches on as well, which is a beautiful benefit. And you start to become brighter. You start to feel like yourself again. There's a sense of coming home and, a radiance that happens within you as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think it sort of links back to your lovely story of your moving home as well, doesn't it? Right at the beginning of this sense of home is
Yes.
it's sort of multi-layered and multifaceted, isn't it? There is the wider world in which we are grounded and based, but then equally that there's this home within ourselves. And I think that's the home within ourselves is the one that quite a lot of us find harder to find. And
You think?
and
I
to,
think both. I don't know. I think it's hard to find like the inner experience of home, and then sometimes I think it's hard to find where you're meant to be living, like where it feels like you're right. It's the inner home experience and it's the outer home experience. Yeah.
So you've been on your healing journey yourself for several
Over
decades now.
25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
look old enough at all to,
I
to
started
climb up. Yeah.
young,
Yeah.
Fiona.
Yeah.
I started
Mate.
when I was a teenager.
I was going to say like five, maybe.
Stop
Yeah.
it.
But have you, I mean, do you want to talk about some of the modalities that you use? In your, I mean, I would assume over that time you've explored several different things and you've come, I think from my impression of you've kind of created your own sort of, multi-layered but Donna approach really. It's not
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
specific. There's several um influences, I suppose is the word.
You're absolutely spot on, Fiona. I started out my spiritual journey by learning Reiki, and that set the scene for how to do energy healing and distant energy healing. And honestly, most of my clients are either overseas or interstate here, and I do most of my healing sessions on Zoom. So it set the scene for being able to do distant healing. But really, I do like, so I've also done holistic counseling, a number of different healing modalities. One of the most effective modalities that I've found is family constellation therapy. It gets to the heart of healing.
Yeah.
When you have people who are like, wondering why they don't feel worthy all the time or never feel good enough or on that people pleasing cycle or in patterns of relationships that are not healthy for them or just, recurring dynamics are often stem from patterns in the family or childhood patterns. And so family constellation therapy does a really amazing job at actually getting to the source of the problem. And it's kind of unexpected because sometimes people don't expect to look to find the answers in the field of the
Yeah.
family system.
Yeah.
It does seem a bit unexpected, but when I tell people about why and how it's all connected and help them join the dots, they're like, oh my gosh, that makes perfect sense. The answer I was looking for is just hidden in plain sight type thing. I could talk about family constellation therapy for a while, but I feel like we probably want to talk about some other stuff too, Fiona.
Oh, I don't
Um,
know. I mean, I think it's a fascinating subject. I have briefly come across it previously through sort of PTSD and trauma resolution. But it's perhaps not as well known as it should be, really, is it? It's kind of right
Correct.
on the periphery, and it is a very powerful modality. So yeah, I'm happy if you want to dive into that for a little bit longer, is you're
Yeah,
more than
sure.
welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just like you and I have an energy field, we call it an aura. Our family system has an energy field as well. That's what I call the family system or the energy field of the family.
Yeah.
And that energy field, it informs all of the people in the family how to behave and what's acceptable kind of behavior. So you might have already identified that you're fulfilling the same kind of patterns that your mother did, or maybe there's something going on that you can recognize that there's similar patterns. The reason why we follow those patterns is not because we've inherited them as such, it's more because when we're born, we are born into the family and we have a biological need to belong to the
Yeah.
family. Yeah,
Yeah,
otherwise
it's
we're not
about
going to
survival,
survive.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
survival. Basic survival. And so we also, like, when we're given the gift of life, that is ultimately the greatest gift that we could ever be given as well. So we always, on some unconscious level, or maybe conscious, but mostly subconscious or unconscious, feel kind of indebted to our parents, a loyalty to them, even if we don't talk to them, even if they've passed away, even if they've done horrible things. There's a sense of loyalty to the family system, through that being given the gift of life, but also through the loyalty, and that need to belong. And
Yeah.
so if you want to go and change those patterns that you're experiencing, actually the need to belong to your family trumps any individual willpower that you have. Yeah, so then what we need to do is actually go into the field of the family system, do healing work around that. So you're free to then create whatever it is that you want to create outside of those old patterns. Um, yeah, so that's how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Also, what we're doing when we're doing healing in the field of the family system is we're opening up the flow of love and life force energy. So as humans, we're meant to be receiving energy in two ways. Fiona, we're meant to be receiving it from the divine and allowing it to come down through our bodies and then anchor into the earth, yes, and allow that Mother Earth energy to come back up into us. We're meant to receive it like that. And then second to that, we're meant to be receiving lots of love and life force energy through our family system. So we're meant to be getting heaps of love and we're meant to be getting heaps of support. And often the dynamics in our relationships with our parents, for instance, are not like the fullest expressions of unconditional love sometimes. And some people have that
Yeah.
and most people don't. And so when we don't have that, what we are doing is all the healing work that's specific to you and your family system that then opens up that flow of love and life force energy so you can feel really loved and you can feel deeply supported and you get all of your needs met in that way.
Yeah, I
When
think
that happens, oh, sorry.
no, go on. I find it fascinating. I think it's really, really important. I think there's a lot of people who would really benefit from it. It's an amazing modality.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like it's it's the modality that helps me fix all of my own problems.
Yeah.
That's how I found it. And then when I started doing it and I had such significant shifts and changes, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to facilitate this for other people. Like it is far too powerful to for me to ignore. And and even though we're doing the healing in the field of the family system, for me, in the energy field, for me, it's translated into my relationships. And I would say that I have the best relationship with my mum and dad that I've ever had. And I feel loved and supported by them. I understand where they're coming from and we've got healthy boundaries with them too. But it's just profoundly changed my life and it's changed how unhappy to happy I feel as well. Like it is so connected
Yeah.
to our self-esteem. The amount of love that we're getting from our family system is so connected to our self-esteem and how we feel about ourselves and how we perceive the world as well. Like it's so it's just so powerful. It has such a significant impact on us that I don't think that we always realize just how much of an impact our family system does have on us until you
Yeah.
start healing and you start to feel that relief in your body and that love in your body and your future feels like it all of a sudden it starts magically opening up in front of you. Then you start to get it like, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
amazing.
I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking, it was I was relating it to our place in the world as well. I think you used the term belonging, and I was thinking, there's a lot of what I talk about on the podcast, and people are sort of feeding into is finding their sense of belonging in the world as well that we have now, and this disconnect that we have from the natural world is for a lot of people leaves them with this sense of unbelonging. They don't feel connected to and rooted into the world around them. And when you have a dysfunctional family as well, then you kind of you get this sort of double whammy. And
Yeah,
but I was thinking as well about how it sort of plays into our relationships with nature and Mother Earth. And I was thinking, like you were talking about the relationship you have with your mother, and I was thinking, oh, our Mother Earth and our relationship with her and things as well. And it's I guess part of the system is learning to understand the influences that have caused you to behave as you are, like why you are,
why you
showing
are the
up in
way
the
you are.
world, yeah, showing up in the world, reacting with people and interacting with people in the way that you are, because that's, how the role you've had to play, I suppose, isn't it? It is about roles that you have had to fulfill within your family to, feel safe and
Absolutely.
belong. And I was just
Yeah,
thinking how that, then impacts you were talking about your relationships, but how it impacts how you show up in the world as well, and your relationships to the greater world beyond your family.
Absolutely. It's a ripple effect. Basically, our relationships with our family is like a blueprint. It sets a blueprint for how open and connected we can be with others. It sets a blueprint for how much we can receive. And you can and then apply that to every area of your life, relationships, money, career, health, your relationship with Mother Earth, your relationship with the divine, like it impacts every other area of your life. And what you were saying about roles within your family is so true. So often we're playing a role that we're not meant to be playing. So as a daughter, in the past, I've mothered my mother or I've mothered my father, and I'm not meant to be in a mothering role. I'm meant to be in a receiving daughter role. And so when we're doing performing the wrong roles, there's something amiss, and that kinks the flow of life force energy flowing through the family system, and as does any kind of trauma that's been experienced that hasn't been processed properly. So it puts a kink in that flow, in that hose
Yeah.
and flow
Yeah.
of love and life force energy. So all of that needs to be resolved and corrected so everyone can be in their rightful roles. And yeah,
Right.
yeah,
No, I love it. I think it's one of those things that like when you hear about it, you think it makes so much sense. It's just like, it's just like common sense in a way, isn't it? It's just so like you're
yeah,
like,
that's the thing.
and it's just, why isn't it, wider used, why isn't it wider known? And that's why I was quite happy for you to sort of explain a bit more, because I suspect a lot of people probably haven't come across it at all. And actually it just has this incredible power to help. And I think one of the big things that I've come to realize is, a lot of us are carrying trauma. A lot of us really need to, you know, do this healing of ourselves. We've had there's a huge sort of generational kind of weight that we're carrying, and actually a lot of us are feeling this need to actually break these sort of generational chains and barriers that we've had, and we don't know where to go and how to do it. And like you say, a lot of us aren't, have been taught not to trust our intuition. We've, as we've gone through school and got older, we've been like, it's like you can't have imaginary friends, and you can only sort of exist in this, very strict sense of the world. And so we learn to doubt ourselves, don't we? And it is about coming home and finding ways to have courage to start believing in ourselves as well, and then doing
Yeah.
the healing and redefining our role, so that, I guess, well, for you talk about people's is it their soul path, or their soul's calling, and that's sort of the root of where you're gently taking people, is to rediscover that, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that that's what being on a healing journey ultimately leads you to, is to being where you're meant to be, becoming who you're meant to be becoming. But it's not like you need to turn into anyone else. It's that we just unload all the stuff that's
Yeah.
accumulated on top of you so you can discover who you already are, the natural, essence of who you are as a soul, and an individual. There was something that you said about before, Fiona, and excuse me, and that was made me think about that sense of belonging. And most of the people that come to me and work with me have that sense of that they've been the black sheep in the family, that
Yeah.
somehow they just didn't fit in. And I don't like calling us black sheep of the family. I like calling us like the psychedelic sheep of the family,
Yeah, the
because
unicorns.
actually the unicorn, right?
Yeah.
We're the ones who have come in that are saying, yeah, I don't feel like I belong. I don't feel like I'm quite fitted, but I'm here to heal, and I'm
Yeah.
here to create something different. I'm here to create something different for future generations, so my children don't need to experience that. I'm here to create a ripple effect of healing in my family so everyone can experience that healing. And I'm here to create something that is different. And as we go through that healing journey, we find our belonging. And that's what I like about family constellation therapy, is you figure out how you actually do belong. We heal that sense of not belonging anymore. So when you feel like you belong in the family system, even if you don't want to, right? Because
Yeah.
I can kind of hear intuitively, I'm already picking up on like what some of your listeners are going to be thinking, like, I don't want to belong to them anyway, Donna. There's a whole lot of dynamic stuff, if that's the case, going on for you that also gets to be healed and resolved. So you can receive love and you can receive all the good things that your family have got to offer you, right? And then you can just leave all the rest behind. You don't have to take all the crap as well. But what was I saying? When
Belonging.
you have a sense of belonging in within you and within your family, it also kind of makes you feel like you fit in the world. Like you've
Yeah.
got a place in the world, and that's really important because you might have a mission that's very connected to, for instance, the environment, or you might have a mission that's very connected to animals, or I don't know, like what your we all have specific things that we're really passionate about and care about deeply, and you're meant to be making a contribution in that area. And so having a sense that you belong in the world and finding your place through your family system is actually really important because then it opens up the doors to you making that contribution that you're here to make.
I think like I think sometimes, yeah, like you said, like some people might sort of, family, and it gives them like, like you said, they're the black
Ooh.
sheep, and they, we've got like, the bad kind of chills going on it.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, I think in more recent times, like family has become very like, sort of it's your blood relatives, but actually something that we often talk about is the sense of community, and community is really a family as well. So it can be, interpreted in different ways, can't it? That it allows you to have relationships with a community. And although, the strictest sense might be your immediate family that you've grown up in and you had around you when you were a child and you were forming your sort of role and place. But actually it allows you to, interact with your family, whatever family means to you now,
Yeah.
and community is so important. And I think also as black sheep, we quite often tend to sort of end up quite alienated and alone because we feel misunderstood, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. And I think that I call it a healing journey because I just don't have any better words for it. But like that journey into self and healing all of the things that we need to heal ultimately lets us become our true selves. And what happens when we become our true selves is we start to connect with like-minded souls. I call it like soul family.
Yeah.
So while I'm talking about family constellation therapy, I'm talking about your biological family or the family that you got adopted into. That's what I'm talking about there. But then also we have soul family. We have people that we have this familiarity with as soon as we meet them, or we develop these connections over time with people. And they're really important. And that happens when we can really know who we truly are. There's this sort of magnetism that happens between people, and it might be platonic, that you kind of just draw in your soul family too, I think. And that's beautiful. Like I've got the most beautiful community and friends around me that have come through, not just from when I was a child or a teenager. I know some people like have a lot of friends from when they were younger, but I was just saying yesterday to my neighbor actually, like a lot of my friends have come through in my 30s
Yeah.
and now my early 40s, like it's a beautiful thing to create a community that feels like family.
Yeah, that you're not the black sheep.
Yeah, you're not, and you never are. That's the thing. It's
Yeah.
the crazy thing about it. You feel like you're the black sheep, but you're not. There's so many other people out there that feel exactly the same.
I think for a lot of probably the people who are probably drawn to this podcast is that they are, they probably do resonate, like you said, with that they are, here, they feel like they need to contribute to society, whether that's environmental or, humanitarian, they're all connected anyway. We can't heal one without healing the other. But they do feel this sense of contribution. And I think that I had a guest a little while ago and he had a great term for it, and it was about like questioning the orthodoxies, and it's sort of, and that is sort of what leads you to be like, the odd one out in your family, is because you're prepared to say, well, why are we doing it like that? Like, just because it's always been done like that doesn't mean that it always has to be done like that. And you're just, you have that more curious mind and attention, and you're sort of aware of the world around you and sort of prepared to ask those questions. And I think, yeah, I think this is it. You need to then find the support and attract these soul families that are on this journey and can kind of, keep you empowered as you move forward. And I think that's what's so important about the work that you do, is you are just helping people to find their path and to, move some of the hurdles out of the way that
Yeah.
might be
Yeah, that's right.
blocking it for them.
Yeah. Like, let's just get rid of those for you because you
Yeah.
don't need them anymore. Like, I'll just help you get rid of those. We'll just clear that out the way so then you can keep running.
It's a fantastic gift to have. And I know that we're going to have in the podcast notes some of your resources and your website and things, so people can connect with you. I think you offer like strategy calls so people can just see if they
Yeah.
resonate with you and they want to work with you. And I think you've got a lovely meditation as well that people
Yeah.
can download and can contact you through. But I know another aspect of your business is you actually make some amazing jewelry, and
Thank you.
and it's lovely. I did have a guest a while ago, and we talked about like the frequency and crystals and how they can positively impact you. And but that's another element of what you do, isn't it? Is that you create these
Yeah.
incredible well, I'll let you explain.
Yeah, okay. Let me tell you how this began. When we moved down here to the beach, I had this feeling of something wanting to come through, and I am sure, Fiona, that I had to be on this land, on this sacred land, for this idea to come through me. And there's that another tie or connection in with, the earth and being on sacred lands at at potent times. It helps you like bring through things. Anyway, I had this huge divine download, intuitive hits and visions came through one after another. Basically, what I saw was, okay, this is a little bit out there, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. I saw a hand, I was out in the stars and I saw a hand out in the stars, and I saw a ring slide onto that person's finger. It looks a lot like my ring, which is an aquamarine, a large aquamarine ring. And I saw energy currents like electricity rippling up that person's arm from that ring into their body, like up their arm, into their chest. And then all of a sudden it was like bing, their aura just like turned on, like got
Oh, wow.
really bright. And I saw all these pieces of jewelry being made in Melbourne, and I saw them being shipped out to different parts around the world. And then I started, like, as these visions and downloads kept coming to me, I realized this jewelry, it energetically activates people. It activates your energy field. And after playing with it for a while, I realized what I was to do was support people in switching their light on, but through this custom made jewelry. And that it's custom made for you, but it's custom made for your soul. So I take people on this journey to connect really deeply with who they are on that soul essence, and experience, like, what does their soul want them to feel? What does their soul want to express through them, and what does their soul want them to experience in their life? And so as people feel that and they have like this visceral experience through
Yeah.
this guided process with me, they will then get like this whole feeling, like this, like it's a vibration, it's an energetic experience, it's an emotional experience, it's a physical experience. And then they will also see, like, what does that jewelry look like for them? Is it a ring? Is it a pendant? What color stone is it? What color gold is it? And so then I go off and intuitively choose gemstones that I know will be able to fulfill that soul mission for that person, or fulfill that soul expression, I should say, is a better word,
Yeah.
better term. And so then I like bring a selection of gemstones to people. I do this on Zoom as well, not just in person. And it's really beautiful, Fiona, because when people meet, I call it their soulmate stone because that's how it feels. When people meet their soulmate stone, they're just like, they start crying or they start smiling or they've been like yabbering a million miles an hour, talking, talking, talking. And then all of a sudden they go quiet when they see the gemstone. And it's just this really beautiful, like knowing a soul match, a
Yeah.
soulmate gemstone. And so from there, once that gemstone is chosen, we design a piece of jewelry that will be like, I want it to be like the most beautiful thing that you've ever seen in your whole life. And so it gets to be aesthetically beautiful, but it also gets to be the most incredible, like energetic experience that you've had as well, like the most incredible vibrational, yeah, piece of jewelry too. Yeah, and so then I have a jeweler here in Melbourne that hand makes them all. They're all made from scratch. And all of the jewelry is made obviously to fit those unique
Yeah.
gemstones. And then I energetically attune that piece of jewelry and that gemstone to that person. And that's really interesting, that process. But the best part, Fiona, is well, the next best part is like when people like unbox their piece of jewelry and they see it for the first time. Like, I love
Oh,
it, love it, love it. I just delivered a pendant on Friday last week, and actually I'm going to share that on my socials soon. So probably by the time this is published, I'll have
yeah.
shared it. And like it's just so special watching people unbox it. But really the magic happens when people wear them. And so now I've got a number of customers obviously around Australia, but also overseas, so in the UK and Spain and America so far. And I've now been able to witness the change and the transformation that's happened in these people's lives since having their jewelry. And it's just powerful and magnificent and like is blowing my mind what's happening with that jewelry in their lives.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
it sounds amazing. I think there's so many things to that. I think, there's I mentioned that we had a guest and she talked about the sort of the frequencies of gemstones and crystals but then wrapped into that is this beautiful intent as well, which is I think something that we're starting to rediscover like how powerful intent or whatever you want to
yes,
call it, prayer or is in imbuing the energy field, really, isn't it? And it's become like, I guess when you were talking, I was thinking like it's a sort of physical anchor for someone for like that vision
it
that they've
is.
had. Like,
It
you're giving
is.
them this like something that they
Yep.
can, touch and feel connected to, but
Yes.
it is connected to this greater kind of thing that they experienced and but every time that they have it they're like, oh yeah, it's a reminder, isn't it,
It
of
is.
what their potential is, I guess, really, isn't it? Is
Yeah, and what their potential is that's unfolding for them, like
Yeah.
that's happening, like being able to look down at your hand and look at the ring, it's like I'm looking at my soul, it's an expression of my soul. And yeah, that's right. And so another part of that vision that I didn't say before, Fiona, you know how I said like the pieces of jewelry were getting made in Melbourne and getting shipped out all around the
Yeah.
world. The other thing that I saw was these energy lines connecting between all of those pieces of jewelry. And I realized I was to create an energetic crystalline grid using the jewelry.
Yeah.
And so now that's my mission, is to create the world's largest crystal grid. And I don't even know if I can measure it, Fiona, but I'm going to give it a red hot go.
Oh, I just it's just so I love this is what I love though, because I had a guest a little while ago and she has a book called Summoned by the Earth, Becoming a Holy Vessel, and she basically was given this Tibetan practice of these earth treasure vases, and basically they were hollow little earthenware vessels that were created with lots of special herbs and sacred artifacts in the clay, and then they were taken and they're filled with prayers basically and intentions and sometimes offerings that are physical as well, and then they're buried in the earth, and they've created this global Mandela, basically, of these
Oh, that's
earthenware
so
pots there. I think
beautiful.
they've buried like 90 around the world now,
Oh my
to bring healing
gosh.
to the earth. And it's like, and then I'm listening to you, and I'm like, oh wow, this is like, that's the same. And
Oh,
they've
that
had
is so
some
beautiful.
amazing, things have unfolded from where
Yeah.
they've buried these vases. And I love this whole, like, this, it's working on this multiple levels. And I think,
Yeah.
and when I was listening
Yeah.
to you, I was like, yeah, I could kind of, eh, yeah, I can see all the connections and like the
Yes,
power
you
in
can
that
see
as
the
well.
grid.
It's
Yeah, and so the purpose of this crystalline energetic grid is to support the ascension of the planet, of all of her inhabitants and her habitats, and to support, you know, energetically holding growth for this planet. And so our last call, also I have every 6 months my customers come into like free calls with me, and they help do that energetic ascension work. It's really
oh
beautiful. So
wow.
we do it all together. And in our last call, we downloaded the energy of peace into the grid. And
Mm,
I'm like, if the earth doesn't need that right now, I don't know what
yeah.
does. But that's what like intuitively came through to do. And it's it's a beautiful way of being part of a global movement and supporting that global ascension, and growth for people and for the planet by this beautiful jewelry that also has a special mission to uplift and enhance your own life too.
I love that. I'm so glad that you shared that with us, because I think it's a really special part of your business, and this your whole like soul mission around these beautiful soul jewelry that you're creating. And yeah, it's just, oh, it's yeah, I'm almost like lost for words, still trying to like
Oh,
process it, because it's just so beautiful. But I guess we're sort of getting to the time, Donna, that we probably have to wrap up. But I don't know if there's anything that you just like to leave people with, to encourage them, find a way to connect with their intuition where they are now, or anything else, any other wisdom you'd like to share. I mean, I'm hoping that people will resonate with you and they'll go and look up that your all your links that we'll have available for them. But yeah, if there's something you'd like to leave them with, that would be lovely.
there's a couple of things, if that's okay. I want
Yeah,
to
no, perfect.
give your audience one more gift, if that's okay. So, if anyone's interested in exploring the jewelry with me, I actually offer a free 10-minute energy reading for you, and I'll look at your aura and see the colors. I'll read your aura, tell you what colors I can see and what that means for you, and then I will try on gemstones in your energy field to see what could be a perfect match for you.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'd love to give that gift to your audience
Oh,
as
that's
well.
beautiful. Thank you, Donna.
Um, and yeah, it's my pleasure. I love doing the readings. They're so much fun and actually really deep and insightful as well. Like in such a short space of time, they're cool. But in terms of intuition and the path that we've been talking about, that healing path that we've been talking about, yeah, the one thing that's really on my heart to share is don't think that you have to have the whole vision or a whole plan mapped out in front of you, because even if you do, like it's probably not going to happen that way anyway.
Yeah.
Intuition actually is like follow one step at a time. Just, if you get an intuitive nudge, like follow that one thing and then see where it leads you. Let yourself be like anxious or scared to follow your intuition because you don't know what's going to happen. It's fine, feel like that, but just have the courage to test it out and see what happens. And so I feel like following an intuition, even though my life path is about that now, I still do one step at a time. Okay, what's next? Okay, intuition, what would you have me do? Or what feels right in my body? Or it doesn't feel right to see that friend. Instead, it feels right. I really need to rest. Like,
Yeah.
or I need to go out into the green. I need to be under the gum trees or walk on the beach.
Yeah.
What is it that I actually need today in your intuition? That's a great question to ask. What do I truly deeply need today? And let your intuition tell you. So
Yeah.
again, just one step at a time. Don't feel like you have to have a whole big vision mapped out. Like, it doesn't usually work like that. I was just really lucky in getting that jewelry business downloaded to me like that, but every other part of my journey has not been like that. So
But again, that's you've been working with these ideas and feelings for quite
yeah,
a number
a
of
long
years before
time.
you got to that stage. So yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
like
not.
really when I started my business, so 9 years ago, I've been like seriously, inverted commas, like dedicated my life to following
Yeah,
my intuition rather than my head trying to figure it out. So
yeah,
yeah, it's been a practice. It still is sometimes,
yeah,
Fiona.
yeah. And I think that's important. I think quite often we are all guilty in our society in particular of expecting things. We love to hack, don't know, it's like everything's a hack. You've got to hack this, and instant results, and
Yeah.
actually we want to get to the destination rather than enjoy the journey. And I think, yeah, it's really great advice for people to just be like, okay, you might not be able to see what the destination is, but you just follow that, what feels right for you now,
Yeah.
and just trust
What's that
that.
next step?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Donna. It's been absolutely beautiful talking to you. I hope lots of people will take advantage of your amazing offerings and get in touch with you now and in the future. And yeah, and I hope we'll all join together as well in connecting to your crystal grid and offering the healing to our world that we all so desperately need right now.
Oh, thank you so much, Fiona. I'm really grateful for you having me on your show. Thank you. I've loved our conversation.
Thank you so much for listening to the Nurtured by Nature podcast. I truly hope this conversation has brought some hope and inspiration into your life. I would love to have these messages ripple out across the world. So if you can, please share this episode with your friends, leave a review on your favourite podcast player, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. I would love to hear from you, so please feel free to connect with me on the links provided in the podcast description. But most importantly, thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. But don't forget to simply get out there and enjoy the natural world.